Intro music. It's going great. Hey everybody, this is John Corey from the John and Jani Show. We're back with episode number 9 with Emma Johnson from WealthySingleMommy.com. With me is Jani Moon.
Hello. Always a pleasure, John Corey, calling you from New York City.
Always a pleasure to have you there with your Christmas tree. People are noticing
the
that.
goddess tree is here, thriving. We're bringing it, and we have a beautiful goddess today coming on our show.
We have Emma Johnson on our show, who is going to share with us a lot of interesting stories about her life, but also her new mission, which is helping women financially when they're trying to deal with being a single mother. Emma's a single mother, went through a divorce and had to pick up the pieces and find out how am I going to raise these kids and earn a living all at the same time. And still be a woman and enjoy life, right?
And she's an incredible writer. She's made such a lucrative career as a writer, and there's so many people out there that I know want to know about that as well.
Right, so let's get her on. We're going to click to present to everyone. It always takes a minute. We don't hear you just
I'm just keeping doing this, Emma, until your mute button comes off. Because it takes
there she is.
You're still on mute.
She's still on mute. That's always how it goes.
Sorry, we're gonna talk right now until you get unmuted. It's a Google glitch.
It's a Google glitch.
So let's see.
You hear us? She hears us, though, of course.
You hear us, but you're still. I don't know why it does that.
Maybe she has to put her microphone on.
There. Oh, yeah. Yay.
Okay, so now we're learning as we go along.
Welcome.
Welcome to the show. We're learning as we go along, Emma. This is only our 9th episode, so. So Emma, I've been reading your story, and it's of course fascinating. I don't want to say it's a tragedy, but it's like it was a tough time you went through, and those are fascinating to find out how did they get out of it, right? And so, if I understand correctly, you were just having a baby and got a divorce at the same time. That must have been relaxing.
Yeah, that was horrible. I mean, you never want to say when your child's being born that it's horrible.
Yeah.
But it was extremely stressful and just overwhelming. A whole lot of questions about the future, fear. I was just I would say one of the scariest times I've gone through.
But somehow you managed to find a way out. You had to pick up the pieces and put it together. And how did you decide what you were going to do next?
So I was facing not only a divorce, but in the year leading up to that, so I had a baby, a 1-year-old, and married this nice guy, and he was the primary breadwinner by far. I still had my freelance writing business going, but on a really, really part-time basis. And he had this major accident and suffered a very serious brain injury. And so if you know anything about brain injuries, I mean, people just... It's difficult in a way that no other injury or illness ever is. You know, so
I do know about
personality changes and it's unpredictable because every person suffers it in a different way. So it makes it one of the most challenging things for both the patient and their family to deal with. And so that's what I was dealing with, and that was my husband, and I was the father of my baby, and then I did have another baby. And our marriage ended about that time. He left, and it was like unbelievable. Like one unbelievable thing kept happening after another unbelievable thing, and I was just like, and then I mean, like even more crazy thing. Like I started having dental problems. I was having root canals, and then like I had hives, and I just like really, it's like my life became a country western song. Not to make light of it, because it was just so bad.
And were you writing at this time? What were you doing?
Yeah, so he still had his income, you know, even though he was working his company, he had a corporate job, so he kept paying a salary for a long time, and I just had this sense about things, regardless of what happened with the marriage, that I just had a sense that he was not going to continue his career, even though he had been so successful because of the injury. Mm-hmm. And so I just immediately kind of started ramping up my freelance business back up. To where it had been and beyond, and then our marriage ended, and I just had this sense, I kind of have to plan for the worst, that I'm going to be the sole provider for my family, and that is what happened. he lost his job and his income, so there's no child support. It was just me in New York City with 2 babies, like a newborn and a 2-year-old, and it was just so scary. It was just so scary. But what do you? I look back at that time, and it's like you get into this zone almost, where it's just like you just do it. And then people have been through much worse. Women and mothers have been through harder times in this world. Like I had emotional support. I had a nice place to live where my mom could come and stay with me for a long time. I had marketable skills. I mean, that is something I want your listeners to really take away from this, is that I wasn't starting from ground zero when I ramped up my business. I wasn't like, I think it'd be fun to be a freelance writer. I'm going to just write. That'd be fun. I had a business. I had a foundation that I could build on, and I had skills. And my situation would be totally different if I didn't have that, if I had completely given up a career, or if I never had a career in the first place.
Sure. So you're making it sound a little bit easier for yourself, but that's still got to be a tough moment, right? Because everybody has this idea of this like great relationship, I have a nice relationship, and here you are, the relationship's falling apart, you've got kids now, this is like adult time, like how do I deal with this? You must have really been going through a hell of a time emotionally, right?
It was very lonely. It was like, I mean, and keep on top of all of this was that I was dealing with, okay, when a divorce is always a tragedy, even when it's like, the best thing for all parties. I really believe that. And as you mentioned, my blog is Wealthy Single Mommy. I speak and communicate with professional single women thinking about divorce, going through divorce, struggling with single motherhood all the time. My party line is that divorce is always, it's a crisis and it's a tragedy. Mm-hmm. Even in the best situations. But mine, on top of it, I was dealing with, like, I had this other loss, which is that my husband, my partner, was gone. I mean, was so different than he was before this accident. And now, fast forward 5 years, he's in a very different and better place. Mm-hmm. But at the time, it was like I had nothing. I was dealing with this extremely difficult. So I was dealing with the loss, and then the person that I would have turned to for comfort wasn't there anymore. So it was like this double whammy, and then I had this huge new burden of all this, like, just responsibility of my family. So it was like, and the anomaly of it, like, that I just was not finding anybody that could relate to that. Like, there's plenty of people that are divorced, there's plenty of single moms, and I have my writers community, but like that I had like this just weird and horrible other giant force in it. It was like I felt so alone.
So, Emma, how did you start to slowly pick up the pieces? Like, what were the, like, initial teeny tiny little baby steps? I know you just said you kind of were, like, on autopilot and you just did it as like a mama bear protecting her cubs, but, like, if you could go back and reflect, what were, like, the little tiny steps that you took?
Well, first of all, I mean, tiny steps to me make it sound like it was just like this slow and gradual thing. I mean, this was like giant shit show, like full frontal life, like all happening at once. And it was, let's see, I mean, in terms of my, like, let's just talk about the money. So it was like, so women out there, you're thinking about getting divorced or facing divorce, he's leaving, whatever the situation is, talking about the money, you need two things. You need money in your own name, and you need an ability to earn your own money. So money in your own name, for me, that meant to start to separate our accounts. Like next relationship, I'm going to do it differently. We had all of our accounts together, our checking, a bunch of savings, everything had both of our names on it. We both had equal access to it. I started to separate that out, have my own accounts, encourage him to have our own accounts, separate our expenses. Like, he couldn't be paying his rent out of my checking account. Like that, this was done. Like, and big part of the problem, which happens very often in divorce, is that he was totally spending money like crazy, and that scared the heck out of me because.
But is that not preparing for, like, the inevitable, or preparing for something that you don't want to happen? Because I mean, me and my wife, we had just like a big pot, and it all goes in there, and so. Even when you get a divorce, isn't there like a freeze on all that money anyway?
Well, so eventually when somebody files, and you can have the courts do that, but that all takes hiring a very expensive lawyer, and him hiring a very expensive lawyer, and then having a court date, and then having all this stuff happen. Well, somebody can blow through a heck of a lot of money before all that stuff happens.
Right.
You're saying it's like a prenup. You're taking these these steps so that just in case it happens, then you're prepared as a woman,
Well,
So
and also I believe that it makes for a better marriage. When women don't, and look, there's plenty of examples of women who are the primary breadwinner, the men who stay home. I mean, I'm being very gender specific here, but there's a good reason because we know that. Why, right? Like, vast majority of the lesser earner is a woman, and the kids go with women, and women fare worse in divorce than men. So I'm going to use the female pronoun here. When women, a couple things to think about. John, as our token married member of the discussion here.
Let me be the token married man here.
You're married. A couple of statistics for you that I find fascinating is that when both couples, these are studies, these are academic research studies, when both members of a couple are both engaged in careers and have careers that they enjoy, the chances of divorce are something like 50% less. Okay. Second of all, when the income and housework, so both partners make about the same amount of money and contribute about the same to the house and the child care, again, a huge increase in success and rate in the relationship. So, and we can get into it too, and the more that a woman makes, the more involved she is in the finances, and more empowered she is. And these are
and the happier she is because she can go shopping and buy all the things that she wants without having to ask her husband for it.
Or she can leave a marriage and feel that she's not happy in.
Yeah.
These statistics you just mentioned sound very practical and they sound very obvious, but I've honestly never heard them before. This makes like a lot of sense.
I'm surprised they don't gain more traction too. And they're in mainstream. I find them in mainstream media, right? But it's a very complicated relationship that we have with women and moms working and divorce and all these things. And your first reaction was interesting to me, which is like, oh, well, you're just setting yourself up for disaster. Well, let's be practical. I mean, how many young families have life insurance? And how many young families have a prenup?
Right, we have a prenup, and I didn't like it. I didn't like getting a prenup at all. I thought this is so unromantic, but we did it. And I think maybe you have to, like you're saying, is just do these things. You have to do them and just kind of like wink an eye, okay, we're just doing this anyway. It's not because we're getting divorced, but just you have your own account.
It meets everyone's need for safety, right? And so then everyone feels good, and then you can move forward knowing that hopefully that won't happen, but at least you're feeling safe, and you've got that cushion.
Well, I think one of the most important things you can ever do, whether it's in relationships or in business or your friend, you always want options. You always want options. And if you feel like you don't have any financial options, you make decisions in your life from a place of fear opposed to a place of empowerment. And money, I don't care what you say, money is a huge factor in relationships, in personal relationships, and marriage.
And so how many people do you think are staying in relationships because of money? I mean, in a way, marriage is kind of there for money, isn't it?
Or they get out of, I mean, it can go both ways. I've been writing a lot about alimony lately, and it's fascinating things that are surfacing. So I'm finding that a lot of women who are, let's say they are stay-at-home moms, or they are, barely have an income, they feel empowered. The percentage of women, of all the people that file for divorce, a much, much larger percentage of those people are women than men, which is interesting because they have less financial power in our universe. But I think a lot of them, if they're married to somebody who's more affluent than them, has a higher earning, they blindly assume that they're going to get nice alimony. And that is still probably true in most of the country, but it's starting to change. And what we're seeing in New York State, where I live, is that women with no income, long histories of unemployment because they chose to stay home and be stay-at-home moms, it's like, oh, well, my husband makes coin and I'm going to get this nice alimony on top of the child support. And the judges, increasingly who are female judges who didn't stay home and that are very proud career or professional women, are like, sorry, honey, go back and get a job. And I don't care if it means mopping floors, even though your husband makes $200 or $300 a year.
Why are women asking for divorce? Maybe this is just completely off topic, but you're kind of right. We know a few people who are getting divorces around us, and it's the women who are initiating. And I'm just like,
yeah, why is that?
Why is that? Is it choice?
Well,
Is this
increasingly
a
women,
trend for women?
well, right, so 50-50, and it's like, it's huge. There was one number going around, I think it was like 80% of divorces were filed by women.
Are men such assholes, or is it
What do
just?
you think that is, Emma? Why do you think that is?
That's a good question. I think I should write about it. I'm not really sure right now. I don't know. I always feel like we're in this really interesting moment of transition in history where
I think so too. This is my next book. I'm telling you right now.
Which is what? What is that, John?
I'm not giving it away. No, it's a joke, but it's not.
I got 10 books I haven't written. I'm not going to steal yours. I'm not going to add your book to the list of books I'm not writing.
Good, good. No, but I seriously think this is a big transition time for women as well. I mean, there was like a long time in the history where, I mean, if you look back from, anthropological sources will say that in a long time ago, when we were just like grunting and cavemen and all that stuff, it was a very egalitarian life between men and women. There wasn't this huge difference, and it's when you could start to amass wealth, that's when the men kind of took off and were able to use that wealth for dominating women.
Yeah, I think that's the issue right there. Women are tired. Like, they want to be empowered. Like, this is the time where women are seeing that they want it all. They want to be in the workplace. They want children. They want a loving, attentive husband. They don't want to be submissive by that,
But we don't want to be too dominant because there's more interesting factoids. Get out your pen and pencil, ladies and gentlemen. That when women, a couple of things, when women make more than her husband, again, I think the chances of divorce increase by like 50%.
I could totally.
Yeah, that's because men can't deal with it.
I don't think we're naturally inclined to deal with it.
Jani, really, if you made way more than a guy you were dating, how would that make you feel about him?
It would make me feel great.
Successful.
What's that?
Make me feel great. And I would just date younger, because the younger men, they don't care.
But how do you feel about him? I think that's a bigger question. Yeah, men are threatened by it, can be threatened, but I think that women don't respect men who aren't as successful as them.
I can say maybe I'm not the majority, but just because of my life history and past, I wouldn't care as long as I am being successful and as long as they are loving what they're doing, right? Like, I dated a carpenter. He wasn't making a lot of money, but he took a lot of pride in his job, Like, if I made more money than him and he still loved his job, that's what matters to me more, is that, that he's not about the money.
Competence and success usually ends up equating to financial success in some way.
Mm-hmm. So what is your experience, Emma? Because you're very successful.
I like to date men who are at least as successful as I am.
But do men find it intimidating?
Do men find out? Yeah, a lot of them find me intimidating. Yeah. I'm a lot to
I'll break you down, Emma. But I do want to ask, I want to start moving on to another question. I know our time is limited here, Emma. What about a woman who's in a situation right now where she wants to get out of it and money is holding her back? What are the steps she needs to take? You mentioned two things. You have to be
money. Right. You need to start making sure there's money in your own name. And that might mean, depending on your situation and the volatility of your marriage or your spouse, it might mean squirreling away cash in a cigar box in the closet. Because you need money to do stuff, like get a new apartment or hire a lawyer, but having money in your own name is so empowering. Money, that is having the money, having a credit card in your own name. Because again, if he's making the money and his name is on all the accounts, shit hits the fan and he can freeze all those. He's got an income coming in and you don't. And you know that, and you also know that now, and you're not making decisions from a place of empowerment because he holds all the cards.
That makes sense.
Cash in your name, and cash in your name, and credit in your name, and access, right? And you need a way to make money. And if you don't have a career now, you need to get one ASAP. Start planting the seeds for a career that you can be, and it might not be your dream career, right? You might just be doing, like, maybe you had a teaching degree from way back when. You don't want to do that anymore. That's fine. Work towards your long-term goals, but get a way to make money now.
That's what happened to me when I got divorced. I didn't want to go back to teaching. I was not. The deal was I was only going to be teaching for a few years, but I had to go back. I had to because I had to make money. I had to survive and take care of myself, and I had to do that for a few more years before I got to a place where I could switch careers.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right. Right. You do what you have to do. Trust me, you do what you have to do. And the other thing I think is really important, you're thinking about leaving, is surround yourself with really awesome people. So, you know, if you, like, your best friend is a complainer and she's divorced and she, you know, think about who you're surrounding yourself with, because that becomes your reality. And just because somebody's there because you've known her for a long time, or maybe it's your sister or whatever, their family, I'm not saying cut people out of your life, but be really scrupulous about who you are surrounding yourself with, because that is I mean, this is, again, we can go into some research, like all kinds of research. If you're trying to lose weight and you're hanging out with people who overeat, you're not going to lose the weight. And if you're around people who are happy and successful, that rubs off on you. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you're going to make a big change. You're going to face a lot of really hard times, and embrace that it's going to be hard as for a while, and it's going to upturn your whole family. But, you know, I'm not saying, I'm not a huge pro-divorce person. It's not necessarily the right choice for everybody, but build yourself up, empower yourself in really meaningful ways, not by shopping and not by drinking a lot of, you know, expensive wine or whatever, but really having your own money, having your own career, surrounding yourself with amazing women who you respect. It's just setting yourself up to make really good decisions and have the tools you need to move forward and thrive after this event.
And every woman should be doing this now, it sounds like.
Yeah, right?
Because your point is these things help you
your own money.
Minimize the risk of divorce anyway, right?
Yes. Right. If you're happy and healthy and making awesome decisions and happy in your career and have your own money,
the chances of divorce.
Argue with me, please. Somebody argue with me about that. Like, that's a no-brainer.
Sounds great.
it is, but I'm amazed at how many of my friends don't do that. Like, they're still looking for, like, rich sugar daddy, and or they have really wealthy men that just totally take care of them. Like, that whole princess mentality still is very, like, it's still very much in bed. I think it's changing, but it's still there.
I think so. I hear about it. It's nobody in my immediate circles that is doing that. So it always shocks me, but I hear, you know, people say that all the time, and men complain that women are gold diggers, and there's some truth to all of that.
But I think the message here is we need to move a little bit more to equality of the genders, and this is good for relationships, and this is good in case this happens. It gives yourself some options, and it's improving your success rate in marriage as well.
Yeah, right?
So equality of the gender, do you ask people out, do you ask guys out on dates, Emma? Emma knows that I like to ask her about dating stuff.
I should put that. We did a funny show that never saw the light of day that was about dating. It was really funny.
You and Jani.
It was crazy.
I prefer not to, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get things going. Worse, you know, ideally, if you have to go there, you make him think it's his idea. But, you know, I'm trying to get over that. I have a boyfriend now, and he, like, we're kind of negotiating all that. And it's interesting because I'm always like, I kind of realize I'm kind of passive-aggressive, and it's not intentional. But he's just, like, not into it. Like, he just likes to talk about stuff straight out. And I'm like, yeah, that's good. I like that, I guess.
It takes some getting used to. My wife is the same way.
Was it, I'm just, you know, this is just, was it, how hard was it to start dating again after your divorce?
I remember early on, well, I remember going through my divorce when things were just, like, so unbelievably stressful. And I was just, I mean, dating and sexuality were like, I mean, I was shut down. I was, like, in survival mode. Pregnant, and I remember having a four-way meeting with my lawyer, his lawyer, and me, and those were just the worst, like the worst. And the lawyers were like, okay, you know, you guys keep in mind, like, this custody arrangement, you like, going forward, things are going to change. Like, his lawyer saying this, like, you know, in a year, Emma, you might be in a different relationship. You don't know. And I was like, she might as well have told me, like, a penis was about to grow out of my forehead. I was just like, date, like it was just like I mean, I'm an adult woman. Like you would think that the notion would have passed through my mind. It was like no way. And then maybe a year later, a friend of mine, they're a couple, and they're like, okay, you need to go on a date. And it wasn't even like, oh, we know this great guy, he's going to be perfect for you. It
No,
was
you
like,
need
who
that.
do we know who's not totally insane and roughly appropriate? And here's a very interesting story to your point, John. So they set me up with this guy, I forgot what his name is.
Well, that's a good sign. That's a good one.
And we went out. It was nice. It was like really boring, and he was very nice and boring, and it was fine. Like it was fine. It was a good first date because nothing else could have possibly happened with it. So it was just got me out the chute. Well, let me just tell you something, and that was it. And then I did start to date a little bit, and I went online, and then I had a boyfriend. Anyways, long story short, it was baby steps, but then it was awesome. But that guy, whose name I cannot remember, maybe let's say a year or something after that one whatever date, I found out through these friends that he cashed in on a startup and is now worth $15 million.
Oh, dang.
The boring ones are always
That's
the
what
best.
a lot of gold diggers would say, Jani. Oh, shoot. But I bumped into him at a party a couple months ago, and I was like, huh, he is just as boring and not attractive to me as he was $15 million ago.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah. So Emma, parting last words. Where can people find you?
Sure, it's wealthysinglemommy.com or on Twitter at JohnsonEmma. And yeah, I'm like totally accessible. Send me a message and I'll reply.
And you just got off a radio show. You have a radio show as well, Emma.
And I have a radio show, The Emma Johnson Show, and you can always find me on podcasts. Just through my blog is probably the best, easiest place to find me.
Okay.
And one piece of parting last wisdom to all our men and women out there.
It's like you can do whatever you want. You know, it's like I'm a victim of this too. Like we tell ourselves these stories that we can't do stuff. Like you can do it. Just do that.
Sometimes you just need
Do
to
it. Just do it.
There we go.
We love
Emma
you,
Johnson,
Emma.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Some great tips. I'm going to actually even think about doing these myself in our otherwise happy marriage with our joint bank accounts and everything.
Yeah, straighten that out. Not that big of a deal.
Thank you so much.
WealthySingleMommy.com is the website. Check her out, Emma Johnson. Thanks for being on the show.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, bye, Emma. So that was that. So, Jani, I made my wife cancel her account like a while ago. I said, "Why do we need these extra accounts?" She had this.
And now you know it was prepping her for divorce.
It's like I'm going to take all our money in 5 minutes. I'm taking all our money, so you need to close this account down.
I loved all the tips that Emma said. I mean, I'll be honest, the truth. I mean, I understand it's like you don't want to like put energy into something and you think it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I think that, if you're just really taking precautions and being safe, and, I know for me, when I got divorced, it was a shit show.
Yeah.
Like, it was a financial shit show.
And this person you love is being a jerk or what?
Huh?
And this person you used to love is being a jerk, or is it just is it all going?
I mean, it was hard in the beginning because we were fighting over money because
you always will. You always will.
Well, I wanted because he was in medical school. It's a whole story, but I got alimony for a few years, which was great, But I wish I would have known what Emma was teaching because I was very careless with the money. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing financially. And like I mentioned, I had to take a job that I didn't, in the beginning didn't necessarily want, but you do what you have to do to survive. And, you have to, I know for me, I have to take responsibility for the life that I created. And sometimes you've got to make some tough decisions, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're too busy spending all your money on Christmas trees. But it's true that you need to have like a kick in the pants sometimes, I think. And when you're in a marriage, you don't have that kick in the pants. You think everything's fine. It's not going to happen. But I think the big point for me is at least it's like I really see that, the gender equality there. Everybody's doing the same kind of stuff, and that you're happier in your relationship because of it. If there's huge extremes, you're living two completely different lives financially, as well as what you're doing in your day, then that's
Do you feel that way in your marriage? Would you feel good about that? The gender equality would bring you guys.
I live in Holland, and so like the women and the men, they're almost sissified. The men here, they do so much on the same level as women. It's unbelievable. I spend more time with my kids. I could never, like my dad went to like 2 of my baseball games when I was a kid. It was just like, but he's also Lebanese. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm much more involved. But we do have a big divide in terms of what we earn and all that kind of stuff, and who does what in many respects.
Mm-hmm. I mean, your wife is very professional. Like, she's a very professional woman. She's like
I think what we do have is a lot of respect for the other person, what the other person does, and so that can work out.
Yeah.
But I can totally agree with that. It's only healthy. I think the more Renee works, the healthier it is for her, and the more she earns, I think it's healthier for her as well.
And for you, you're not being resentful, potentially either. I know some men get resentful.
No, I would totally be resentful. Absolutely. You think I'm joking, but I'm not. Listen.
No, I know you would.
I know that she's the best person to take care of our kids. It's not me. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I think right now the way it is with the young kids or whatever, she's doing great to just kind of work on the side here and there. Like she's got a client in a little bit and whatever. But for the other part, she's there for the kids the whole time, and I appreciate it very much. And she at the same time knows how much I appreciate it, and also she knows she has to kind of suck it up for now. But
gender equality, people. Let's all make money and have jobs we love, so we can have long-lasting relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Yeah.
Jani, thanks for being with me again. Emma Johnson, thanks to you.
WealthySingleMommy.com.
Check it out. That was a good show. All right, everybody.
Love you guys.
Oh, Jani's off for 2 weeks. Off to have some fun.
Tennessee. Yeehaw, Tennessee.
Yeehaw. We'll see you next time.